Good evening, friends, and welcome to our Tuesday night study session. Excited to have you here with us and looking forward to a productive use of our time together. I'm going to have to sneak out about 6:45, so we're doing an abbreviated session this evening and am looking forward to kicking things off and spending as much time as we need to focused on on whatever it is that you are struggling with. What are you hitting that is difficult? What questions did you run into over the week of exam prep and study that we need to work through together? Yeah, what is the question you have? All right, looks like Nicole wants to know what to focus on in the studies. Morel, what was your question? And kid, if you could change your username to just whoever you are, just I don't, that way we know who's who. That would be great. Failed twice. What is it that I really need to study to take it for a third time? So if you take the exam, whenever they provide you with your results, they provide you with which sections you missed questions from. Did you receive that? Okay. What sections did you had the most questions that you missed in? That would be a good place to start because not all sections are created equal, right? And so you want to first understand, hey, what was I studying that, or what do I need to study to help me get through the exam? And then what I'm going to put in the chat for everybody is the exam breakdown. So the first one is the national exam. You need a 56 out of 80. And then the, state governance is in the wrong section. So state governance. And then the state exam has 40 questions. Oops, let me get that. Let me retype that. So the state exam has 40 questions and across 4 sections. So if you look at that national exam section, you bang for your buck is in contracts, general principles of agency, and practices of real estate. That is right there is 35 of your 80 questions, right? So leasing and property management, you're going to get a couple of questions, but you get 100% on that. Not nearly as important as getting 100% of the contracts questions right. So, invest your time, energy, and resources according to where they're at, right? Land use, not big. Land use and leasing and property management. You don't want to not study them at all because they could be easier questions. But at the end of the day, if you don't understand contracts, you're probably not passing the exam. Vocabulary is going to be something that's going to help you understand what questions are being asked, right? What questions are being asked. So there might be words in the questions, or like if you understand vocabulary and definitions, then you're going to be in a position to help you on those questions. If you're using the CompuCram to study, there's like 3 forms. There's the questions, there is vocabulary, there is matching or flashcards, or, there's a few different varieties. Do all three. And, I want to stress, like, there's a lot of familiar faces here, or familiar black squares, since people don't have their cameras on, with respect to folks who are showing up weekly. If this is the only studying that you're doing, it is unlikely that you will pass the exam, right? If you are not doing practice problems, and you are not doing those flashcards or vocabulary, or making your own flashcards to study, reviewing your text, identifying things that you struggle with, like, the CompuCram is a really good test prep tool. It is not holistic test prep. And so when I pop on here and I say, hey guys, what are you struggling with? It's difficult for me to really add the most value, to put you over the hump and get you into the next set of opportunities, which is having a real estate license and selling real estate. If we're not, if you're waiting to just master, the property ownership section of the CompuCram, it's unlikely that you are going to succeed on the exam. So, Jessica, you said you need more clarity on fiscal and monetary policy. Can you give me a little bit more detail? Is there a question you ran into? Is it something you read in the text? And feel free to, we can unmute and chat if you're in a space to do that.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute it and I was having so I think I'm just really confused on when they're applied.
Okay.
Like, how will they be seen in a question format that I'll have to understand? Because I feel like I haven't came across it yet.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think of like where that applies. I mean, that may, if there are questions about like what's happening with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and the Federal Reserve and mortgage interest rates, those are things that might fall under fiscal and monetary policy. I can't say, and for anyone who's taking the exam, if you've run into those, I don't know that that those are. I guess I haven't heard of those being encountered. You would be the first person in 2 years of study sessions who's brought anything related to fiscal and monetary policy. But the way that we can look at that is monetary policy or decisions made by the Federal Reserve, or what's also known as like a central bank, right? And how they manipulate currencies, print currencies, increase or decrease the cost of money, right? Those are big macroeconomic decisions, right? Monetary policy, just think monetary, macro, right? And then your fiscal policy is going to be related to things that are like the tax and spending habits of the governments, right? I think most often you see it referred to as, fiscal policy is usually federal policy, right? So think monetary, macroeconomic environment, big sweeping decisions. Like when the Fed met last week and decided to raise interest rates a quarter, that's an impact on monetary policy, right? When the federal government—
this is great. Sorry, keep going. This is great. This is what I needed.
Yeah, when the House of Congresses meet and they decide to create a tax break for a certain class of citizen, right? A certain wage earner, or they increase taxes. That's fiscal policy, right? So macroeconomic things impact everything, right? Monetary, macro. The federal government and the fiscal policy is going to typically be more targeted, to specific subsets of the population. Like Fed, it raises the cost of money by 0.25%. It impacts everybody. Federal government decides to give a tax break to corporations, just doesn't do much for you or me. Does that answer your question, or is that helpful?
Yes, no, that was perfect. Thank you.
Great, cool, awesome. What else, gang? This is the point where I typically remind everyone that I've already passed the real estate exam, so this is for you, not for me. And yeah, Tiana, we'll probably hit some CompuCram. We've found that there's much more value in understanding what concepts specifically folks are struggling with, and then addressing those ahead of that. So, you know, again, if you're not finding the things that you're struggling with before the CompuCram, before these sessions, like there's a wasted opportunity there. And I think that it's, you know, I think, you know, whether if anyone can just remember a question that they had, or
Can you explain discount points?
yeah, I can. So with respect to discount points, are you referring to paying down, like the exercise of lowering your interest rate?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So whenever somebody's closing a loan, they have the opportunity to pay additional funds at the start of a transaction up front, and then they will lower the interest rate as a result, right? And so it's there, when you talk about discount points, a discount point is 1/8 of a percentage point, right? So if I have a 5.125% loan and I buy a discount point, I pay for a discount point, it's going to lower my interest rate by 0.125 down to 5%, right? So discount points are used to reduce the interest rate by putting cash in up front to reduce the monthly payment or reduce the interest rate over the life of the loan. So you might get a question around, you know, hey, I want to, I don't know, this person's gonna buy 2 points at the, 2 discount points at the start of a transaction, or, you know, at the point of assuming this mortgage, you know, what is going to be the difference in their monthly payment? And then you're simply going to be calculating the differences between the 2 interest rates and how those flow through to the monthly payment. The other time you might hear points, I'm trying to think of the specific phrasing in the question, but it refers to paying points, right? So if you pay a point on the mortgage, getting a discount point reduces by 0.125, 1/8 of a percent. When you pay a point on the mortgage, right? Like the seller's going to pay 2 points towards closing cost. Those points are 1% of the loan value, right? So if it's a $100,000 loan, it's $1,000. If you purchase a discount point, that impacts the rate.
Thank you.
That's a great question, right? And that's one, you know, hey, you understand it, you get your, essentially get your head wrapped around that. When the question rolls around on the exam, that's going to be one that you're going to be less intimidated by. Sharice, just so you know, you are messaging me directly, but I'm going to read your question. When you purchase a house with I'm assuming that you mean PMI there. Is there any way you get that taken off after you pay 20% without refinancing? Yes. PMI, depending on the way the loan's structured, you have to apply to have it removed after 20%. Some of them do that automatically, and it'll fall off on all payments following the first payment following being 20% loan to value on the loan, right? So when you get to 20%, you don't pay PMI effectively. You don't need to refinance to get out of PMI. PMI is simply it's personal mortgage insurance. And it just says, hey, you own less than 20%. You have less than 20% equity in this house. And because of that, the loan is riskier and it has to be insured. So you pay PMI, you're forced to pay PMI. But then once you're at 20% loan to value, it will come off following that.
So one of my friends just took the test recently, and he came across the Megan law, and I don't remember ever going over that in school, but it was about I think about just registering as like an offender or something along the lines. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, and that's listed in every one of our contracts, so you'll see that. But it's a requirement that sex offenders be registered and communities be notified of their whereabouts. So, you know, if somebody's a registered sex offender, convicted sex offender, that they report that you know, is accessible information. It has to be reported. So that's Megan's law.
Okay, I just didn't remember going over it or even remember even reading it anywhere. So
Yeah, I was
going
gonna say, like, and that was the Ohio exam?
Yeah, I took it over in Middleburg.
Huh. Okay. Well, you know, sometimes those questions pop up on exams, like the Ohio Division of Real Estate. You know, not every test is the same, not every question is the same, and so, you know, they may be piloting certain questions. Like I've heard people who go in and their set of their questions being 90, 80 and 40 section per section. They're 90 and 50. And it's just because there's 10 more questions that they're not scoring on. You know, it's like they're like testing stuff out. Jennifer asked the question, are questions more scenario or direct? And it's going to be both, right? You're going to see very definition focused questions, very easy, simple math focused questions, and then word problems where you've got to pick out the information that you need to be successful. So I don't really believe it's one nor the other. I don't think it's dominated by one or the other. You have a little over 3 hours to take the exam, right? So you get just under 200 minutes for so it's, I think, 3 hours and 15 minutes. You get 195 minutes for 120 questions, which is about 90 seconds per question, which you're like, oh my God, some of these questions, it takes me 90 seconds to read them. Well, the idea of that is, some of them are you're gonna know like that, right? It's gonna take you 5 seconds. Okay, now on the next question, you got 3 minutes, right? And we've talked before about, how to organize your test, like which questions to answer first, answer the ones you know first, answer the quick ones first. That way you have the maximum amount of time dedicated to the problems that require the maximum amount of time. The test is all multiple choice. I think there might be some true or false in there. I don't actually know if they still have that or if I just made that up in my head. No short answer, no written answer, just all multiple choice, right? You guessed on everyone, you're going to get 1 out of 4 right. You're going to get 30 questions right. Just think about that. Like you're, damn near halfway there, right? To your, or you're, more than a third of the way there. You need a 70% on each section. Give me one more question or concept that we need to walk through to make sure that we're all getting it, and then I will do a section of the CompuCram.
Can you explain the difference between exclusive right to sell and agency? Exclusive agency, I think it is.
Yeah, there's a great question, right? So you're likely to get, and this that question is likely going to qualify as part of the general principles of agency section. So when you sign a listing agreement, there's a few different types of listing agreements, right? There's 4 types. There's an exclusive right to sell, an exclusive agency agreement, an open listing, and a net listing. Actually, I don't think open listings are a thing. Hold on. Exclusive right to sell, exclusive agency agreement, net listings. I think net listings are illegal in Ohio, so you're unlikely to get anything on that. And the exclusive right to sell and exclusive agency agreement are usually the items that they want to delineate the most between. So an exclusive agency agreement says, if I, the seller, bring the buyer, I do not have to pay a commission. So if I'm listing my house and Jessica is my agent, and I say, Jessica, I am going to do I would like to do an exclusive agency agreement. First of all, she should say no. Or exclusive agency agreement. She should say no, because there's more to selling a house than finding a buyer. But the example in the question, the test is there to ensure that the difference, right? And let's say her brother or sister then want to buy the house, right? Well, that, procuring cause there is probably going to fall to her because it's her sibling. That's going to allow her to not pay me a commission. Now, if I found a buyer off the street, she still pays me a commission, right? So exclusive agency means if the listing agent brings anybody, you pay the commission. End of story. But if the seller finds the buyer, they don't, right? Exclusive right to sell means that you get paid no matter what. So all of our listing agreements at Keller Williams Greater Metropolitan are exclusive rights to sell, right? Which means even if her brother, her sister, her mom, her dad, her aunt, her uncle, even if she's at work and somebody says, I'll buy your house, you get paid no matter what. You have the exclusive right to sell that property. Does that make sense? Does that difference make sense, Leah?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Any others? All right, let's do a section of the exam, or let's do a section of CompuCram. So based on what I hope is not newfound knowledge about the distribution of questions on the exam, which section would you guys like to cover?
Property ownership.
Okay, so property ownership is one of our smaller sections. We can hit it, but just know there's not a ton of value in mastering this, right? Like when you're doing your flashcards and you're building out scenario problems and you're going to listen to old clips of Prep Agent or any of the other test prep YouTube stars. Make sure you're focused on contracts, practice of real estate, and general principles of agency. That's almost half of the questions on the exam. All right. When an interest in real property is a remainder interest Is it A, grantor gets the title back at the end of the life estate? B, a grantor is conveying legal title to a grantee? C, the life tenant gets legal title? Or D, title goes to someone at the end of a life estate? A, B, C, or D in the chat. Looks like we have A and D in the chat. Someone who thinks it's A, why do you think it's A? And someone who thinks it's D, why do you think it's D?
Wouldn't it be that the remainder is the person that is left?
Okay. Someone who thinks it's A, defend your answer.
I originally thought it was A until I remember the remainder man. It's always, one. It always goes back to that. So it totally makes sense now. It's D.
Yeah, it's D. So there are two types of future interest, right? Remainder, which is where it, goes on to remain with another person, right? And then there's a reversionary interest where it reverts or reverses back to the person who gave said life estate. So remains with somebody other than the grantor, or B, or sorry, remainder remains with somebody other than the grantor, or reversionary reverses or reverts back to the grantor. Question number 2, the legal description of a property based on points of beginning, distances, directions, and degrees is known as A, meets and bounds description, B, lot and block description, C, government rectangular survey, or D, a recorded plat subdivision. A is correct. That is a meets and bounds description. Question number 3, Wayne grants Brent the permission to use Wayne's property to fish one hot summer day. This is referred to as A, encroachment, B, a license, C, encumbrance, or D, an easement. This is going to be B, a license. And the reason for that, it is revocable at any time, which means the one day means at the end of the day, you can't fish there tomorrow. It's a one-day license. Question number 4, to find out whether there is an encroachment on the property, a person should purchase A, survey, B, homeowner's insurance, C, mortgage insurance, or D, title insurance. A is correct. It is a survey. The survey is a review of the property by a licensed surveyor, which would identify any physical encroachments. Question number 5, an owner of real estate sold the same parcel of land to 2 different buyers at the same time. When the buyers meet at the property, they discover they both have recorded deeds for the property. What type of lawsuit will they file to determine who has title? A quiet title action. B, civil rights lawsuit. C, action to recover title. Or D, an eviction lawsuit. A is correct. When there are clouds on the title or disputes around title, a quiet title action is necessary to determine who truly has title. Question number 6, which is not an example of common area in a condominium? Is it A, the land, B, the living room, C, the swimming pool, or D, the laundromat? B is correct. A swimming pool would not, a living room would not be considered common area. It's your property. Question number 7, which would serve as evidence of a shareholder's exclusive right of possession of property owned by a shareholder's corporation? Would it be A, a net lease, B, a proprietary lease, C, a deed, or D, a gross lease? The B's fill the chat, and the B's are right. Net leases, gross leases, or leasehold estates. Deeds convey legal title. Shareholders don't have title. They earn their right of possession as a result of the acquisition of stock, which is then delivered by a proprietary lease. Question number 8, the heirs of an estate are selling their deceased father's home. They remove a bedroom set, an organ that matches, an organ bench that matches a built-in organ, a television, and various famous paintings. Which of these could be considered real property? Is it A, the organ bench, B, the famous painting, C, the bedroom set, or D, the television set? Because the organ is built in, the bench that goes along with it would be considered real property under the doctrine of constructive annexation. So that is the requirement that this thing belongs with something is built in. House keys, garage door openers, benches for built-in organs. Question number 9. Which is not real property? A, drapes, B, a built-in dishwasher, C, a sump pump, or D, an in-ground swimming pool. Question number 10. A telephone company has a 20-foot wide, yes, A was correct, 20-foot wide easement across Farmer Jones's land, on which telephone poles are installed and through which telephone wires are extended. When the telephone company goes cellular and removes the poles and wires, the easement terminates due to A, abandonment, B, merger, C, failure of purpose, or D, release. Yep, C's the correct answer there. No longer required to have the easement. Telephone poles and wires are gone. No easement no longer meets the standard of purpose. All right, let's do a few minutes of contracts. Like I said, I got to step out a little early tonight. Question number 1. Old man Jones wants to settle his affairs prior to his death by selling his land and giving the money to his children. Broker Bob lists the property and markets it. After 6 months, an offer from Widow Smith, who lives in the next county, is received in the mail. Jones immediately signs the contract without change, and Broker Bob drives to the next county to deliver to the widow in person. Which might prevent this from being a binding contract? Is it A, either Widow Smith's incompetent or she dies before Bob gets there? C, only if she dies before Bob gets there. Or sorry, B, only if she dies before Bob gets there. C, only if she's incompetent. Or D, nothing. What if I told you C wasn't the right answer? Yeah, you can't have a binding contract with a dead party. If the seller or the buyer dies at any point in the transaction or before the transaction is confirmed or the contract is confirmed, even if it, I mean, shit, if she dies the day before closing, there's no contract, right? Either buyer or seller dies, contract's null, terminated, right? Now you can still hold it all together, and if property was held in trust and there's another trustee, there's a bunch of different ways that still goes through. But look, if they're incompetent, which means they don't have the capacity to form a contract, or they're dead, which means they don't have the capacity to form a contract, then you don't have a contract. Question number 2. A large mirror that a buyer wants to remain with the property should A, never be included in the sales contract, B, be disregarded as having no consequence, C, be identified as a fixture, or D, be agreed upon verbally with its price stated in the contract. C is going to be correct here. Fixture is defined as a piece of personal property which remains with a real property. So if you say, hey, that, floor length mirror that's bolted to the wall, we want to make sure that stays. We're identifying as a fixture in the contract. That way it just rolls into the purchase price. The other option is that you can write up personal property on a bill of sale, but it cannot be added to the contract unless it is identified as a fixture. Question number 3. In a face-to-face meeting, a farmer offers to pay a roofer $1,500 to install a roof on his barn. The roofer says, I'll do it tomorrow. What type of contract do they have here? Is it A, a unilateral contract, B, a voidable contract, C, an option, or D, an express contract? D is correct. It is an express contract. Question number 4, broker Bruce is working with his client Jim, who wanted to buy a lot from Tom. Bruce submits to Tom a purchase and sale agreement. It is signed by Jim and stipulates a $25,000 price, a 6% sales commission, and 90 days close. Tom accepts the price, but changes the commission rate to 5%, closing and the closing period to 45 days, initials the changes, signs the contract, and gives it back to broker Bruce to hand it to Jim. Do we have a valid contract? A, no, there was no meeting of the minds. B, yes, Tom initialed his changes. C, no, the broker's commission is non-negotiable. Or D, yes, the contract is in writing and signed by both parties. Yep, A is going to be correct. There is no meeting of the minds, right? So Jim signed the contract, then it got changed, right? And so that's why those changes have to be initialed. If there are changes made to a contract that are not initial, then they are not accepted by both parties, which means there was technically no meeting of the minds. Question number 5. Dave is told by his lender that his debt ratio exceeds the limits set by the Federal Housing Authority. Dave was hoping to get financing through the FHA because he only has 5% to put down. On his way back to his apartment, Dave sees the sign in a yard that reads rent to own, credit problems okay. Which agreement is the best fit for Dave? Is it A, a life estate, B, a net lease, C, a lease with an option to purchase, or D, a purchase agreement? Yes, it is going to be C, the lease with an option to purchase. Question number 6, seller Sam decides to purchase buyer Bob's home. He submits a written offer stipulating that time is of the essence and that the offer must be accepted in writing before 12 o'clock noon, 3 days hence. On the third day at 11:30, buyer Bob telephones seller Sam and says that he has decided to accept the offer as written. Do the parties have a binding contract? A, no, acceptance was not made in the manner specified. B, yes, buyer Bob communicated his acceptance to seller Sam. C, yes, Sam cannot revoke the offer. Or D, no, the buyer Bob didn't wait until 12 noon to accept. The question states that the offer must be accepted in writing. Was it accepted in writing? No. So B and C are wrong. And the question says until it's good and it needs to be accepted before 12 noon, 3 days hence. So not waiting till noon is actually what's required. So deductive reasoning, there's only one answer that can be right. I promise you, they won't all be that easy on the exam, but 2 of the 4 answers, there'll be 2 yeses and 2 nos. Well, if you can determine that, well, the offer had to be in writing and it wasn't, well, then it can't be an accepted contract, right? Question number 7. Susan offered to trade her 4-bedroom, 3-story townhome near the subway station for John's 1-room cabin in the mountains. John promptly accepted the offer. A week later, Susan's attorney's office, they signed a contract setting forth an even swap. In light of the apparent wide disparity in the 2 values of the 2 properties, is Susan obligated to fulfill her side of the agreement if she changes her mind before closing? A, yes, because all elements of a valid contract are present and the adequacy and equality of the consideration is not critical to validity. B, yes, Susan initiated the transaction, therefore she is required to complete it. C, no, Susan was under undue influence. Or D, no, John is obviously taking unfair advantage. A is correct. All the elements of a contract are there. Think about all the items necessary to form a contract. None of them have anything to do with the equality of consideration on either side of a transaction. All right, last one for tonight. Walton decides to sell his cabin on the lake and offers it to his regular postman Bill at a price of $5,000. How nice of Walt. The next day, Walton receives a note from his neighbor, a close friend of postman Bill, who says, I accept your offer. Is Walton obligated to sell? No, because no licensed real estate agent was involved. B, yes, because acceptance was within 3 days. C, yes, because the offer and the acceptance were both in writing. Or D, no, because only the offeree can accept the offer. D is correct. Only an offeree can accept an offer. You can't write an offer on a house or you can't write an offer on a house 123 Main Street, and the guy at 125 Main Street's like, yeah, I'll take that price, boom, and have a contract. So that's the reason for this one. All right, gang. That is that's going to do it for tonight. A few things just to stress: focus on the right sections of the exam, and focus on doing as many different sets of practice problems as you can. Do the flashcards, do the matching, do the vocabulary, do the questions. Google, go to YouTube, Ohio Real Estate Exam Contract Prep. There's somebody out there doing videos on it. Watch old videos of this, right? Find concepts, things you struggle with, review your notes. Where did you struggle in class? All that. The most valuable thing that you can do is come to the study sessions with questions, right? Like, hey, I was working this practice problem, and when you know it, I just can't get it. I can't figure out why the answer is what it is. I don't know how to calculate the interest rate, or I don't know how to calculate the tax liability. And we can work that problem, and you'll have eureka moments. If you just run practice problems with a CompuCram all day long, you know, or if you're just showing up here. The other thing that I would tell you is, you know, the best learning experience is just take the exam, right? Some of you have been 3-6 months and you have yet to take the exam. Take the exam as soon as you can. And if you fail it, take it again as soon as you can. And take it again and again and again, right? Because there is, you know, all you're going to do is wear grooves in your brain where the answers are, you only know CompuCram and you lose the concept, or you only know Prep Agent, or you only know PSI Test Prep, or you only know this, that, or the other thing, and just take the exam. And guess what? It's most people who don't pass the exam at least pass one section. So then they have 40 to 80 questions less the next time. But that's all I got for tonight, guys. Have a great night. If you need anything, please call, email, text, whatever. I'm happy to help. Looking forward to it. Have a good one, team.